Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
I used to be my first UFC fight. I was in the locker room warming up, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm telling myself they brought me out here to lose. I'm here, so I'm supposed to lose, and that's how I went out and fought. And I looked like shit. And my next fight, I went and fought Sam Stout, and I shocked the world. That's because I went out there clear-minded. I was only out there in my corner. Nobody knew me out there. There was no pressure. And I fought the best. I used to deal with depression and anxiety my whole life, but I never knew what it was. I just thought I was just a sad dude behind closed doors. I didn't know what depression was. I didn't know what anxiety was. I just felt it, you know. And I never had the best confidence growing up. I knew I trained hard. I knew I was great. I knew I was really good at what I did, but I never believed in myself. And I would shut myself down before I even went out and fought. And that was my biggest problem. That was my biggest problem. I was an overthinker. I put too much pressure on myself instead of just going out there and just doing what I do. And I'll be completely honest with you guys. When I took mushrooms, it changed my whole mindset on myself, my life, my beliefs. And it really helped me to become a better, more determined, confident, self-sufficient person.
Hey everybody, this is Stevie DeSantis.
Hey, this is Matt Seidel.
This is Edward Tindall.
Hi, this is David Gambard with Alta Andina.
This is Jamie Shore.
This is Matt Cooper.
This is Reese Humphrey.
Hey, this is Ronan O'Shea.
This is Marcus Dedina.
This is Frankie Perez.
This is Just Connor.
This is Thomas Kingsley Brown.
This is Kyle Buller from Psychedelics Today.
This is Steve Eady.
Brent Tobler, and you are listening to Airey Brothers Radio.
What up, y'all? This is Airey Bros Radio, episode 28, with MMA fighter, DJ extraordinaire, Frankie Perez.
We got Frankie P for you coming from the Dirty Jers today. Talk about his experience coming up on the MMA scene in New Jersey. Talk about what it was like to get the call to the UFC. And we also get into running a DJ business and what that's like being an entrepreneur, maybe some wedding stories. And we get into how a Bruno Mars concert with some mushrooms changed Frankie's life. I'm looking forward to give this one to the people, Richie.
Yeah, it was great to, I guess, meet Frankie for the first time. I know you had spoke very highly of him with your time training with him. And so to go into it thinking we were going to be talking mostly MMA and a little bit of the business side of things, DJ, and then go kind of down a rabbit hole as we do here at Airey Bros and get into, you know, his profound experience and the benefits that he's found in working with a psychedelic like psilocybin mushroom and how that changed his life, so to speak, and got him back on the right path in terms of being confident and, you know, having a profound experience, a life-changing experience, not expecting that. So again, it's always great when we can talk to people about what they've got going on in their lives and their experiences, but then also as this works its way in, that more and more people can understand and maybe shed some light for some people that there are real benefits to this, and it doesn't have to be pharmaceuticals or SSRIs or even going to a therapist. Like, these are things that if we had free access to could be life-changing, and we're starting to see that more and more. So anytime we can have someone on to talk about that, it's gravy in my book.
Yeah, and getting to talk to Frankie about something like psilocybin, nothing I really ever talked to him about, or I was dabbling in at the time I knew him. So, 6 years later, getting to have a phone call with an old training partner, old coach, and kind of see how they're evolving as a person and using their experiences to better their life. It's what Airey Bros Radio is about, right? Just showing everyone that you can change, you can make positive impacts, and you share that stuff with the world, and it helps everyone. So, like you say, when we all do better, we all do better.
It's when everybody does better. Everybody does better. But I'll let you slide. But for sure, when everybody does better, everybody does better. So share the love, get this out there. If you have experiences like Frankie had or are interested, hit us up, let us know one way or the other what you got going on. Hit that subscribe button, give us a review, 5-star review on iTunes. And you got anything else?
Just give us a follow on Instagram at Airey Bros, and make sure you guys are doing the daily challenge and following the daily challenge on all forms of social media, especially Instagram at Airey Bros.
Let's get into it. This is episode 28 of Airey Bros Radio with Frankie Perez. Much love. Namaste from the boys of 1512.
You had touched on, you live a positive life, try to be happy, try to avoid the negative bullshit, and that was a big reason why we wanted to have you on the podcast. I had always told you back in the day when you were coaching me over at Catones in Jiu-Jitsu that I loved your classes, I loved the energy you brought to the table. It was just always innovative, always showing new stuff, and always had a good attitude. So that's why we wanted to have you on here. For the listeners who might not know who Frankie Perez is, just let us know who you are and where you're from and how you got started.
Well, I started, I was born in Secaucus. I'm a Jersey boy through and through, born and raised. I grew up in North Jersey in a small town called Wallington, and that's where I started half my life. And then around 8th grade time, I moved down south to Howell, and that's where I lived the second portion of my life, and got into fighting by mistake when I was 17 years old. A friend of mine had some extra tickets to the fights at Brookdale, and ended up going with my dad. And from the first fight to the last fight, I fell in love with it. I actually had Todd Going, the Howell wrestling coach, was fighting that night. And
we
one
were
of his
there.
buddies, Oh, you were there?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was there that night. He fought John Doyle. He lost. He got his nose broken. My now teammate, Dante Rivera, was the main event. And I found a coach through a friend of Todd Going. His name's Jason Scully. And he used to own Jersey Shore BJJ in Belmar. And that was a Kurt Pellegrino affiliate. And I started there. I was there for probably 6 or 8 months. And then they brought in a black belt from Brazil, this dude, Ademir Oliveira, who ended up leaving them and opening up a gym in Howell, which was closer, which was cheaper for me because I was a young kid, just hustling, trying to make a buck, and I couldn't really afford high-end training from Jason. So I ended up going to Ademir's and started with him. I was like this right-hand student. He gave me my blue belt. He gave me my purple belt. And I was competing under him. I started fighting under him. And then it kind of just snowballed into what it was. I turned pro. I ended up teaming up with Ricardo Almeida and Frankie Edgar and that whole Iron Army, our APJJ team. And my last 2 amateur fights were with them, and then I went pro, went to the UFC, you know, and traveled the world a ton, and now I'm just living my life, man. I'm recovering 10 months this week. Actually, today, 10 months today. ACL surgery, and hopefully again, going to fight again in November for Ring of Combat, start my climb back up the ladder and get back to the UFC.
Did you grow up as an athlete? Were you a wrestler? Did you wrestle at Hal, or did you just kind of stumble upon going to the fights on accident and knew Todd through school and stuff?
You know what's funny is I grew up in North Jersey, and wrestling wasn't a thing. I played baseball, basketball, football growing up. And even when I moved down south, baseball, basketball, football. But I remember seeing the wrestlers, and I didn't know what it was all about. I was always getting in fights when I was a kid, man. I was always smaller than everybody, so I had Napoleon complex. So I was always getting in a fight. And when I got to high school, I signed up all 4 years for wrestling, but my parents would never let me go. They were cool with me racing quads and dirt bikes and all that stuff, but they never wanted me to wrestle because they thought it just wasn't a thing. They thought it was too aggressive, it wasn't safe and whatnot. So the wrestling coaches actually didn't like me because I signed up all 4 years and never went to the gym, never went to one practice, you know. So it is what it is.
When you got started, how many amateur fights did you have before you went pro?
9. And 9 amateur MMA fights and 2 amateur Muay Thai fights.
Did you?
11.
And you gravitated towards the BJJ right away, or is it because that was what was kind of available in your area?
You know what, bro? I can't even lie to you. I was like that typical kid that went into a gym and was like, I want to fight, you know? And then I was doing jiu-jitsu. I competed my first 2 months. My first 2 months in, I competed in my first tournament, and I did well. And that's kind of like where my family kind of started taking me serious. But jiu-jitsu was just like natural for me. I was always like, you know, I was always wrestling around my brother or my friends. I was always like, an energetic kid and always down to get dirty. So I think I just gravitated to jiu-jitsu because it was my first outlet. I always wanted to box. My parents never let me box. So it's funny how it kind of worked out. But I think jiu-jitsu is just a good way to start for me. And I like the whole aspect of it, you know, like the gentle art. And just like the journey it brought me on, man. I've competed all over New Jersey, New York, PA, Delaware, you know, and met some incredible people through jiu-jitsu. So it's an incredible art form, and it's my whole life. So I couldn't imagine starting with boxing or Muay Thai first. You know, I don't know where that would have brought me, or even if I would have found MMA if I went that route first.
And so they were cool with you going to jiu-jitsu? They didn't see a correlation between jiu-jitsu and wrestling at all?
You know what it was, man? I was paying for it myself, so they really, and I started driving, you know, so it was like, what were they going to say? If I wasn't working on my dirt bikes or my quads, I was training jiu-jitsu. You know, I really wasn't a partier until like I turned 18 and I started DJing. But I was kind of paying for it myself. I was training, you know. So once I did my first tournament, they were cool with it.
And with switching around, you know, going from, you know, one school to another that was closer to home and then going to Ricardo's, did you experience any of the sort of the politicking that goes on?
Yeah, I did. So, like I said, man, I was like that kid that wanted to fight and whatnot, and then I had my first sparring session at Jason Scully's, and I got my ass beat. And it was the first time I really got punched in my face, like clean cloth by a bigger dude. And I was like, all right, there's definitely more to this game than just jiu-jitsu. So when I got to Adamir's, I trained. I fought my 7 fights with him. I was 7-1 as an amateur with him, 8-1 as an amateur with him, and I was 2-0 as a Muay Thai fighter. So I had a really good record. When I left him, just because the school was too small, and if I wanted to take this as a career, it was time to find a bigger school, something that had a lot more outlets for me. So when I was searching around for schools, I went to Kurtz, I went to AMA, I went to a bunch of local schools that were really, really good, had high-quality guys, great team. So I did see the politics in there, especially like when I told a lot of the guys that I was shopping around, I didn't know where I wanted to go. One school that I went to was just way too far. I would have to move up north. The other school was great. I just didn't see, the accessibility for growth. But when I went to Ricardo's, Frankie reached out to me, Steve Rivera reached out to me, Chris DeGore reached out to me and was like, hey, man, come check us out, come to the gym, we'd love to have you. And the second I walked in, I knew that was going to be home for me. I walked on the mat, there was 60 guys training on the mat, black belts, white belts. The who's who was in the room, everybody was cool, there was no egos. And I sparred, we trained, Ricardo and I hit it off, and we signed on the dotted line, man, and the rest is history.
You had mentioned Chris DeGore, and I feel like Chris DeGore is one of those guys that the people in the know, but the people who don't know always want to know who's that guy in Frankie's corner that's always been in his corner. Just touch on Chris DeGore and what he means to New Jersey MMA.
Chris DeGore is a special human being that I don't even think if you can clone somebody, you can come up with a Chris DeGore. You definitely can't buy somebody like him. He is what you call the key factor to our group, the key factor to Frankie Edgar, the key factor to each and every one of us in the room. Talking about a family man who's a great father, somebody that will literally give you the shirt off his back even though he doesn't have another one. He's there for you night and day. He's an incredible human being, incredible teammate. He's got so much knowledge, and he's been in the game for so long that, he's a Hall of Famer, the New Jersey Hall of Famer. He's a special dude, man. He fought in the UFC before the UFC was anything, He helped Frankie through, thick and thin. They started together, you know what I mean? And he is just an incredible person, a BJJ black belt. He's got a plethora of fights. He just has so much knowledge about the game in and out of the cage, and about life, man. He's one of those dudes that I look up to, that I look at like a big brother, a mentor. He's just an incredible individual that I don't think our team would be our team if it wasn't for Chris DeGore.
Yeah, he might be one of the first guys from New Jersey to ever fight in the UFC.
Yeah, I would. I don't know that for a fact, but I would definitely. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, back in the day, me and Richie had started our grappling journey over at Rhino MMA, and our first night there, Rob had us doing wall takedowns with Chris, and we were wrestling him or whatever, and then, afterwards someone was like, yeah, he fought in the UFC. We're like, wait, what? And then went home, and I had that on DVD and checking it out, but I always felt that he was one of the unsung heroes of New Jersey MMA and never got the credit that he really deserved.
You said it. You said it perfectly, man. That is the dude that, talk about going through a grinder in life and being able to fight your way out and really building something for yourself. That dude used to work, hard as hell, a regular 9-to-5 job, and find time to train and find time to be a family man. He was a father super young, and he had to grow up really, really fast. You know what I mean? And Chris has been through a lot of shit in his life, but you would never know that because he's always got a smile on his face. He's always got jokes. He's always laughing. He knows how to, if the team's down, he knows how to, spike us all back up, man. And he is definitely should be an MMA idol for sure, because there's no one out there that could ever step in Chris Corey's shoes and do what he does. You know, what he did. You know, he's an incredible individual.
Respect.
Yeah, man. I mean, our whole team, man. It's like, and I don't like to say that, like, our team's the best in the world, and the thing about our team, man, we're smaller than any team out there, and I have to say, all of our teammates are in the top ranks of whatever promotion they're in. And with our team, man, we cut the bullshit. We don't sugarcoat nothing. You know, everyone helps one another out, whether you're in camp or out of camp. Even if you're just sitting on a bench and watching sparring, our team, we've been pretty fortunate to surround ourselves with a small circle of people who want to be there, who love to be there, who like one another, who no one has an ego. If there's some bullshit or drama that we have to handle, we handle it right on the spot. There is no tomorrow or talking shit behind anybody's back. You know, our coaches are incredible and are dedicated. They're in it with us. You know, when we cry, they cry. You know, when we bleed, they bleed. So our team is very, very special on that aspect. You know, there's a lot of great teams out there that have, 100 fighters on their roster. But our team being as small, I think that's why we're so successful and so strong, because we're able to have eyes on everyone at every given time and be there for everyone. So it's a special thing we have over here.
You touched on the team and the special characters that make up that team. When you first started training with those guys, did you have any pushback from anyone? And were you starstruck by some of the guys you were training with, or did everyone just kind of accept you and they were just like the other boys and there were no issues?
You know what it was, man? It was I starstruck a little bit? Yeah. I had to take my lick. It wasn't like I walked on the team and I started sparring Frankie and all the big guys. Like, nah, it wasn't like that at all. I had to put my time in. I had to get my ass beat. I had to build relationships with people and let them know, like, I'm not a dick. I'm cool. I'm laid back. I'm just here to train and get better and help you. So I didn't get any really pushback, but I definitely had to take my licks and work my way up to, sparring with these guys. I'll never forget the first spar that I had with Frankie, man. I was scared out of my mind, and I did well. I did well. I like to say I was not one of the first guys who really started adapting as a mixed martial artist, but definitely thinking in that direction to where, putting the wrestling and the Muay Thai and the boxing together well. I think that's what helped me a lot in growth and being able to spar these guys. I'll never forget when Edson first came to the gym. I'm like, holy shit, this dude is legit. I remember seeing him fight at Brazilian Combat, and then he came to the gym to help Frankie with, I think it was Jose or Benson, him and Marlon, man. And I was like, these dudes are freakazoids, kick hard, incredible. And I'll never forget the first time I took Edson down. I'm like, all right, I can do this, I can be with these guys, and that's when I was like, all right, they're just human, it's all in the head. They're human. Yeah, they hit hard, they're better than me or whatever, but it's all right, they have their day, I'll have my day, but that was a cool time in my career where at Ricardo's, and the old Ricardo's, man, it was kind of like, it was rugged. So he had this big mat. There would be 50 guys on the mat every day with different weights, from 25ers to heavyweights. And there were so many guys, we had to split up sparring. So the light guys would go first, and then, they would do their 3 or 4 or 5 rounds, and then the next guys would go, and the next guys would go. So the guys that were amateurs and were in there just, trying to build themselves up organically by themselves, that were, just starting out, whatever, would be at the beginning of the mat. All the pro guys and Frankie and Eddie and Edson were all at the end. So that was all the amateur guys' goal to get to the end. You know what I mean? So when you finally get there, it's like, all right, now you got here. Now it's like, let's stay here, you know? So that was always cool at Ricardo's, man, the old gym.
How hard does Edson really kick? Have you ever received one of those ones that Kevin Lee got?
Bro, Edson and I, that's another dude I look up to. We have a great relationship, you know, even though he's at ATT now. Him and I have had a lot of camps together. I've helped him with, I can't even tell you how many. I've helped him with Dustin. I've helped him with Bobby Green. I've helped him with Kevin Lee. I've helped up to Edson with almost every fight. Probably his last 5 or 6 fights for sure. And he kicks like nobody's business, bro. His kicks, his punching power, his strength is, honestly, man, his strength and his wrestling are so good, but you never see it in a fight. But Edson can wrestle, man. Edson can wrestle, and you'll never see it. But, I mean, his kicks are unbelievable.
Talking about the team and a lot of New Jersey MMA legends in there, and, you know, being from New Jersey, me and Richie definitely take pride in, you know, going to those old reality fighting shows or the Ring of Combat shows, and you see those guys in the UFC. You know, Jersey has a really tough MMA scene, and, you know, there's history behind it. What was it like coming up on the scene in New Jersey in Ring of Combat, and just kind of, you know, talk about that journey on the way up?
It's tough, man. It's definitely a tough journey, especially like I'm not saying I did it any different than anyone else, but you know I was working a regular job and finding time to train and running at, you know, my dad would pick me up from my boxing gym at 12 o'clock at night, get to the corner of the house and make me run, you know, 5 miles before I went to bed, you know. So it was tough. You know, and coming up in the Ring Combat days, like my first 4 fights were the toughest fights because guys were trying to pad their records. So my first fight, my first 2 fights, I probably went through 15 opponents, just trying to fight. You know, so that was tough going through a full camp and getting through all that. But yeah, man, it's definitely a rocky road, but I'm a true testament and a big believer of just trusting the process, especially when you're good and you know you're good and people are in your ear and telling you, oh, it's going to happen this time, it's going to happen that way. I got promised the UFC probably 2 or 3 times in my career, and neither of those 3 times ever happened. So it's a little discouraging when you have a goal and you're promised something and it doesn't happen. But I'll tell you something, you know, I fought for the UFC 4 times, and it's an incredible walk. But walking out the Ring of Combat, there's nothing like walking out the Ring of Combat. I mean, on stage, there's, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 people in that room. Everybody knows you. They're screaming. The bleachers are shaking. The roof is shaking. The noise is so loud. And, you know, everybody's literally right, you know, feet away. It's not like barricaded off like the UFC. You know, it's Ring of Combat is an incredible atmosphere, man. And I love fighting there. You know, I love fighting there. If I could make a living fighting for Ring of Combat, I would. You know, but it's an incredible experience.
Yeah, we've seen some good Ring of Combat fights in our day. How long into starting, or how soon after, or how many fights in did you realize this is what I'm going to do?
So when I was in college, I went to a 2-year college for like 3 years. And,
so did Jimmy. He's still
I
going.
went for 10, bro, so you're good.
He's still going.
Yeah, so I don't even know how I made it through. I never even finished. So my parents just always wanted a degree from me. So
was that Brookdale?
Brookdale.
Shout out to Brookdale Community College.
Yeah, everybody's 13th year, and so when I was in college, I decided I didn't want to go to college anymore, and I sat my parents down. I was like, dude, I don't want to go to school. My parents were like, I didn't want to waste their money anymore. I was like, school is just not for me. I had my DJ business going. It was doing well. So my parents said, okay, you don't want to go to school anymore? Fine. No problem. You have 1 year to figure your life out. And I said, all right, that's cool. So in 1 year, I just stuck to DJing, and I just stuck to training 24/7. I was still working, but just training 24/7, just building myself. And when I turned pro, I had I was 5-0 or 6-0, and I think it was after I fought this wrestler kid, Adam Townsend. It was the first time I went to decision, and pushed my cardio. It was a tough fight, and right there and then I was like, I can do this for a living. It really put the true pressure on me and pushed me to a limit that I've never been pushed to before. And when I knew I could hit that limit and keep going, I knew I was ready to take this as a career. So that's probably when it was.
And you mentioned, being told you're up for the UFC, and that kind of taken some time to come to fruition. Was there any time in that process where you're getting your hopes up and it doesn't come to fruition, that you're thinking about going DJing full time, or was it like, nah, I'm just going to keep plugging away, and eventually Dana and Sean and whoever else is going to come grab me?
You know what it was, man? I got promised it twice, and I let it go in 1 year and out the other, because I used to be a big head case, and I'm not anymore. So when I got told it the third time, I didn't even believe it. But it is discouraging, man. It is discouraging. I mean, you're getting MMA blue balls. You know what I'm saying? You're getting promised a life-changing, a life-changing moment. This could be the rest of your life, or this could just be an experience. At the time, it was going to be the rest of my life. So being promised that over and over and over and over again, and saying, oh, there's scouts here scouting you, and there's scouts here scouting you, and it's tough. It's tough on the mind. It's super discouraging, and when it doesn't happen, when you're 8-0 and you have, 6 finishes, and you're, top ranked, lightweight in the country, you know what I mean? And you got life by the balls, and there's no stopping you, and you're just getting promised this and promised that, and it's just not happening. It is discouraging. So I just said, forget it, man. I'm just going to keep fighting. I'm not worried about it. It was tough. And then when I had my first loss to Chris Wade, I knew one of us was going to go. I knew that was going to be the big decision. Chris Wade and I, when we were coming up the ranks, they were trying to keep us apart because they wanted us both to go to the UFC. But it kind of just came to the point that there was nobody else to fight, so we had to do it. And that was my first loss, my split decision loss. So that right there put a huge hurt on me, and that was the point of where most people would say, either I'm done, do I want to climb this ladder again or keep going? And I ended up fighting again that year on World Series of Fighting. My TV debuter, I was on the main card, and I had the performance of my life that night. And I was supposed to fight the end of that year, late November, early December, something like that. And I didn't, because my grandfather ended up passing away. And my grandfather was, if anybody knows, my grandfather was my best friend. So I wasn't in the best mind state. So that fight, and when I pulled out of that fight, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm playing paintball with a bunch of my buddies, and I ended up getting the phone call when I'm walking to my car after I got done saying, hey, man, welcome to the UFC. So it was kind of like a sign, I feel, you know?
What's that like, getting that call finally?
You know, man, it was, not to get, like, emotional or out of character or anything. It was a text. And when I read it probably 60,000 times before I even could answer. And I honestly just dropped to my knees and started crying. I was in such an emotional state at that time. You know, I wasn't myself. My grandfather just passed. He was like my best friend. So it was just a whirlwind of emotion. I called my parents. I couldn't even talk. And I literally was supposed to go out and get burgers and beers with the boys. And I ran home just to see my parents and hug them and kiss them and say, man, we did it, you know? Because I'm nothing without my family, you know what I mean? And they've seen the struggle. They've seen me cutting weight. They've seen me dieting. They've seen me sacrificing my life and not living a normal life that a 20-year-old kid should be living. And I was just dedicated to this game. And when it all came at that specific moment, you know, would it have been as an impact if my grandfather was still here? I don't know if it would have been that big, but I think it was bigger because especially my grandfather never wanted me to fight. And he never saw me fight. He was in my hotel room for one fight, and that was it. So it was kind of like I felt like him letting me live my life out and hitting my goals with his acceptance, you know, that he's away now, so he doesn't have to worry about me anymore, you know? So it was a pretty surreal moment in my life.
Before you got that call, you had your first loss, and prior to that, you were getting the call, and then they were saying, "No, we don't need you," and you said that used to affect you, that you were a head case, but you overcame that. How did you overcome being your own worst enemy?
I'll be honest, man. It wasn't probably till a year ago that I didn't come out of my own head. I used to deal with depression and anxiety my whole life, but I never knew what it was. I just thought I was just a sad dude behind closed doors. I didn't know what depression was. I didn't know what anxiety was. I just felt it, you know. And I never had the best confidence growing up. I knew I trained hard. I knew I was great. I knew I was really good at what I did, but I never believed in myself. And I would shut myself down before I even went out and fought. And that was my biggest problem. That was my biggest problem. I was an overthinker. I put too much pressure on myself instead of just going out there and just doing what I do. And I'll be completely honest with you guys. When I took mushrooms, it changed my whole mindset on myself, my life, my beliefs. And it really helped me to become a better, more determined, confident, self-sufficient person in life, in business, in entertainment, as an everyday dude. And I didn't think it was going to impact me the way it did, but and I don't recommend it to everybody out there because everybody is different and it might go completely the wrong way for somebody else, but it helped me tremendously. I used to be when my first UFC fight, I was in the locker room warming up, and I remember this like it was yesterday. And I'm telling myself they brought me out here to lose. I'm here, so I'm supposed to lose, and that's how I went out and fought, and I looked like shit. At my next fight, I went and fought Sam Stout, and I shocked the world. That's because I went out there clear-minded. I was only out there with my corner. Nobody knew me out there. There was no pressure, and I fought the best. And I fought the best I've ever fought. So that's kind of the game that I've always played with myself, and I've always put the most pressure on myself in and out of the gym. in and out of life. So now I understand who I am, what I want, where I want to be, and it's all thanks to mushrooms. So I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, the 3 inches between your ears can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and they can flip-flop back and forth multiple times in the same day.
Big time, dude. Big time.
So when you discovered psilocybin, was it an athlete that brought that to your attention? Did you research it? How did you come upon that?
To be honest, I've known about it for quite a while. I'm not big into drugs. I don't do drugs,
It's medicine.
But when I did more research, and my old chiropractor, honestly, Dr. DeMarcos, is really the one who opened my eyes about these certain holistic drugs and medicines and different outlets instead of taking over-the-counter drugs or doing this and doing that. So he really opened up my mind to it. And when I did research and stuff like that, and I had friends that took it, told me about their experiences, and I knew fighters that took it with their experiences. But honestly, when I did it with one of my best friends at a concert on a random weekend that I was just getting away from life, and I wanted to try it. I wanted to do it. And that was the weekend that impacted my life the most ever in the 30 years of being on this earth. And honestly, everything has been so positive and incredible ever since. I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew who I was. I understood certain values that I had and why I have them. It was just an out-of-body experience for sure that I had.
What concert was it?
Bruno Mars, man. Bruno Mars.
Was it indoors or outdoors?
No, it was indoors. It was indoors, man, and it was a pretty wild trip, dude. Because I went from having an ego trip and being like an egomaniac to going back to the Frankie that I was, of the not confident, depressed human being, to saying, fuck Bruno, I should be on that stage, like not this dude, you know what I mean? Vibrant colors and really getting into my surroundings and everybody in the stadium, to feeling the heat off the lights and understanding that I'm supposed to be under lights and I'm supposed to, follow this path and be an entertainer and really live my life as full as possible. You know what I mean? So when my experience happened, dude, I honestly couldn't even talk the rest of the night because it impacted me so heavy that it really slowed my life down and made me understand what I'm supposed to do.
Have you done it again, or was it a one-time experience?
I'm actually setting up another trip soon, so probably at the end of summer.
Come to Denver.
Slow down.
Come to Denver, dog. We got decriminalized here.
Yeah, I heard they just they legalized it out there. That's right.
What a time to
Is
be
that where
alive.
you guys are at now? You're in Denver?
Yeah, we're in Denver.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, you're. We can definitely relate with you. I don't want to speak for Richie, but I have dealt with some anxiety and depression, and have definitely experimented with psychedelics to counteract that, and have had profound experiences. So as you're over here telling us your trip and your journey, we're just smiling and just stoked that you shared it with us. So definitely relate, and you're definitely in safe company and like-minded company with the Airey Bros.
Yeah, bro. I love it. I love it. I'm an open book, man. I got nothing to hide.
Same here.
Who I am is who I am. Yeah. So I talk about it a lot on my podcast once in a while when I have a guest that's not afraid to talk about it. But I honestly think it's going to help the world once it's legal everywhere, for sure. It's already leaps and bounds over in Colorado. You know what I mean? The same thing with marijuana. I think that is an incredible medicine. And once that gets legal everywhere too, I think that's gonna turn this world upside down, and I mean that in a positive way with pharmaceutical companies and all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. We're all about it, and we've had a handful of people on that are coming up, or well, they'll be coming out before you, but that are in that psychedelic realm and just discussing and talking about the benefits. Because growing up the way Jimmy and I grew up, it was, mushrooms were just as bad as, or LSD was just as bad as heroin. And pharmaceutical drugs were good because there was a guy in a white coat that was writing on a piece of paper and gave them to you. And as like we were talking earlier, as we get older, we kind of form our own opinions and look into things and find that, the stuff that the doctors are giving you isn't really that good or isn't really helping you and is actually, causing other symptoms or making things worse, where here are these things that are naturally, grown out of the ground. And like I was out on a run, 3 weeks ago, and we found them. We pulled them right out of the ground, So the more we talk about it, the more people are going to be aware of it, and the more people are going to be open to it. Some people may not believe us; they just think we're two crazy kids from New Jersey. But when we have all these people on and discuss it and hear about these profound experiences, more and more people they're having these light bulb moments, or at least thinking, well, maybe I should look into this or do a little bit more research. So stoked that you shared that experience with us, and yeah, we'll get you out to 14,000 feet. We'll show you what it's really like.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's like another conspiracy with pharmaceutical companies. You know what I mean? Like, I can get into a whole debate on that, man, because it's wild, dude. It's wild. And what's crazy is I'm a big advocate for CBD. And my parents are very, very traditional and very old school, and don't do drugs. Drugs are the devil, and da-da-da-da-da. I've had my mom on CBD medication for going on a year and a half, probably close to going on 2 years now. And CBD absolutely saved my mother's life. She used to be on diabetic medication for over 20 plus years. She has lupus. She had high blood pressure, and I've had her on CBD for going on 2 years now. And she called me up crying one day and goes, I don't have to take my blood pressure medicine anymore, and I don't have to take my diabetic medication anymore, and my hands don't get numb anymore, all from CBD. So it just the natural stuff, man, and all these holistic doctors are getting more and more popular because they're actually helping people, and changing people's lives instead of, giving them a prescription that's just going to, put a Band-Aid on it, so.
What CBD was your mom taking from, like, what company?
So I use this company called Florida Green. They're out from Florida. They have their own grow. There's no bullshit in it. There's what you buy is what you get with them. I actually was doing a wedding in Florida and was talking to my my partner who I was with down there and his wife about it and trying to get her to take CBD, but she's against drugs. Smoke cigarettes, but against drugs. makes complete sense. So
as she's drinking a Diet
talk
Coke.
about law of attraction. Yeah, talk about law of attraction. We walk into the hotel where the wedding is set up, and a guy comes up to us. He's like, "Hey, you guys are young. Why don't you come to our seminar tomorrow?" I'm like, "Oh, what's it about?" "Oh, well, I'm from Florida Green, and it's about CBD and how it benefits everyone." And we just looked at her and like, if law of attraction hasn't smacked you in the face yet, it just did. You know what I mean? So I use that company, and that company is incredible. I have nothing but amazing things to talk about it. I mean, they believe in their product so much that you call them or email them, "Hey, I want it to this address." You send them your info, they'll mail you the product, and then you send the money. Like, that's how it works with them.
Did they give you a code? You got one to shout out?
So what?
Did they give you a code? You got one you want to shout out or anything?
No, I got no codes, but I send everybody their way, man. I was using Pure Spectrum for a little bit too. Pure Spectrum's not a bad product. They sponsored me for a little while, so I had them. But Florida Green, man, is hands down the best CBD. I've seen it change my mom, literally in front of my eyes, man, and I couldn't be any happier.
This podcast is sponsored by Florida Green CBD.
Yeah, you were mentioning the pharmaceutical companies and conspiracies with that. It just blows my mind, living in California and now in Colorado, that marijuana is still illegal in New Jersey and doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. That, to me, that's mind-boggling. How easy is it to get?
I don't know. I don't live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, medical marijuana is legal here. I mean, obviously, but I mean, I personally think it's just a money thing. It's just a money thing. The problem is, when it comes to marijuana, they know it works. They know it helps people. The problem is, these pharmaceutical companies run the world. I don't care what anybody thinks out there. They think Donald Trump's the president. Donald Trump's not the president. He's just a scapegoat. He's just the person for everybody to blame. It's everybody under Donald Trump that really runs the world. And pharmaceutical companies are just as bad. They have all the money in the world to make people think what they want to, what the pharmaceutical companies think. Just imagine if they legalized marijuana and gave it to every cancer patient in the country, how the cancer companies would do. They would lose their staff. They would lose all their sponsorships, all their endorsements, all their fundraising money, all that stuff, because they know it works. So they're going to put all these people out of business. They're going to lose all these millions, not even millions, trillions of dollars. It's a constant game, and it's fucked up to say they need people to. So it's like it's a fucked up thinking and living, but I think they're going to wait the longest that they can to legalize marijuana, and it's pure. I think it's just a whole financial thing. I think it only has to do with money.
No, 100%. My only hope and praying is that the marijuana industry is going to grow in all of these states where it is legal and where there is recreational, and they are going to be able to have lobbyists just like the pharmaceutical companies are, and that money that's coming from the marijuana industry is going to get to that level where they can battle a little bit and at least have at least have a dog in the fight, and then it's going to also get to a point where, even if you are a state that doesn't have it, there's going to be 2 or 3 states around your borders where it's legal, and people are just going to be, going back and forth, like Kansas are going. Kansas has Colorado on one side, Oklahoma underneath it. Everyone that lives in Kansas is getting it, or it's trickling in. So it's going to get to a point where you're just not going to be able to stop the snowball.
Well, that's the thing, too. Forever, coming up as kids, it's like, oh, my God, you smoke weed? Like, you're a terrible human being. Like, you're a bad person. You should be in jail. Like, this, that, and the third. It's like trying to legalize weed is like trying to have a convicted felon that ended up being innocent back out into society and saying, all right, he was innocent, he didn't do it, but he's a good person, but he's got a neck tattoo that says, like, whatever, white power. But this dude's like an incredibly nice human being, goes to church, has a 9-to-5 job, has an incredible family, but nobody still believes that this guy is a good person. They still believe he did the act. You know what I'm saying? So it's like all these old school mentalities that think that weed is a bad thing and it's a drug and it's a gateway drug because from weed you do coke and coke you do heroin and da 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 da. No, that's just a person that is either bored in the wrong circle or honestly has an addiction problem. You know what I mean? It's or has personal issues. That's being a drug addict is subjected by other things around it, not just doing drugs. You know what I'm saying? It's not just doing weed.
Right.
So,
and
you can't overdose on weed.
No, I've tried. I've tried. Alcohol is way more of a gateway drug than marijuana could ever be. Like the only gateway that marijuana is opening up is going to the 7-Eleven and buying a Chipwich and a bag of chips. That's the only gateway that's happening there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been plenty of people out there that have died from alcoholism and they've died from weed, you know? I mean, they're like, oh, that guy died from weed. Yeah, how it happened? He passed out driving his car. All right, that's a different story, you know what I mean? But, like, smoking a fat J to the head, you could do fucking 100 of them. If you can keep your eyes open and stay awake, go for it, bro. But you're not going to die. You're just going to sleep for 3 days.
No. I've run 100 miles doing it.
Yeah, there you go. Go for it. You know what I'm saying? It's great, man. And there's a lot of people out there. That's what's crazy is there's so many, how do you say this? Like high-end people like CEOs, guys that own Fortune 500 companies, guys that are, influencers, ambassadors out there that microdose on mushrooms, smoke weed every day because that's how they focus and slow their brains down. You know what I'm saying? And they have these multi-gazillion-dollar companies, but the drugs are helping them focus and understand their business in a different outlet than they would have done sober or on Adderall or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's what you touched on before about the propaganda that's been spread and people believe in everything. People had me convinced my whole life if I ever did mushrooms or LSD, I was going to lose my mind. And then you do it and you open up this whole world and you realize that everything you've learned about this subject has been absolute bullshit, and you kind of have to be your own experiment to figure things out for yourself and filter what you believe in and what you listen to, because that propaganda is strong. There's people, other generations removed from our generation that believe that stuff wholeheartedly, and you tell them you do LSD or mushrooms, and like you said, they think you're the devil.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild, man. It's wild. I think in the next, 5 to 10 years, this world is going to be completely different when it comes to all this stuff, for sure. And it'll definitely be more accessible, I think, especially when it starts helping, people start realizing it's helping people more and more. Is there people out there that should stay away from this stuff? Absolutely, but, I can't wait to go on a retreat and take ayahuasca. That's my big goal within the next year is go to Costa Rica or Peru and go to one of those ayahuasca retreats. Because I hear, that's, a whole nother level.
Yeah, dude, definitely a profound experience that I have had and suggest it to anyone who is looking to get into that. Like you said, is it for everyone? No, some people just are born with different wiring and it's not going to be good for them. But I know it had a profound experience on myself, and anyone who's thinking about going and doing it, who am I? But I would suggest, yes, dive in and go do that and explore.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I really can't wait. I've been getting on this conversation more and more with people because, people only look at me as, the entertainer, the fighter, and then when they hear me on the podcast, it's like, dude, this dude thinks, completely different than most, and I do. I think outside the box, and I really feel in my heart that I would say maybe this is a high number, but 90% of society don't know who they are and need drugs to figure that out.
But life's good in the Matrix.
What I mean by that is, I feel like, when we're born, we're consistently and constantly learning off of other people, right? We learn from our parents, we learn from our friends, we learn from life experiences, through school, just being out on the streets, the playground, college, your first job, you're always learning off of other people. But we're never actually learning ourselves, teaching ourselves anything. We just know the way that we're taught through our folks or through life experiences or whatnot. And I always thought, I'm like, man, I wonder who we would be or what type of person I would be if I was just a blank canvas out in this world, teaching myself how to walk, teaching myself how to talk, teaching myself how to eat and live. You know, who would we be then? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I think is pretty wild out here, that I don't think a lot of people understand who they are and why they think a certain way and why they feel a certain type of a way towards something, you know? And I feel like drugs is really, not even drugs, like, you know, we say medicine, you know, mushrooms, ayahuasca, smoking weed, you know, it gives them a whole new vision of themselves.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing when people discover that, and you're around them when they discover that. You know, they come to that that realization after even just a small little nibble or a little drop full, and they're all wide-eyed and they're like, "This is amazing," and like, I know, I told you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it falls to being scared. You know, I don't think it's anything else besides being scared and not willing to trust yourself in that certain situation. You know, you don't know if it's going to be bad. You don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know if you want to know. You know, maybe you just want to live your life, and that's completely fine too. But, man, you got one life to live. You got one body to live it with, so you might as well get everything out that you can, you know?
Yeah, we are our own science experiment, and what may work for some person in a pharmaceutical or an SSRI may be a disaster for someone else. And just to be able to do these things freely here in Colorado, or at least feel a little bit less under the microscope or paranoid as you might be in New Jersey, we have access to all these things, and the more we could talk about it, the more we could share it, the more people are going to get hip to it. And then, like I said, you know, I was not a registered voter in Colorado until they put the decriminalization for psilocybin mushrooms on the ballot, and your boy went over and got his voter's registration card so he could contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you.
They suckered me. They suckered me, Frankie. I registered to vote so I could pass Prop 301, and then a month later I got jury duty. And when they were doing the questioning for the jury duty, the one lawyer was like, "Mr. Airey, how did you feel when you saw a letter in the mail that you had jury duty?" I was like, "This is what I get for trying to decriminalize mushrooms." And after that, I was dismissed, so it all worked out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I got jury duty once, bro, and I ended up getting I got pushed out. I was like, nice, this is sweet. Never again.
So,
and I don't vote. I don't vote. So.
Yeah, that was really the first time I've ever voted. To be honest with you, I've never really voted for a president or anything like that. But you know, they put cool things on the ballot, they're gonna get me out there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So we kind of got on this topic. We were talking about you were in Florida to do a wedding. I want you to touch on your business. Looks like you do destination weddings with your DJ business. What does your business entail? What do you do?
So I have a full functioning one-stop shop marquee event group that we host all social events. So entertainment production, event planning. We have over 20 plus professionals that work with us each and every weekend, and we're kind of like a one-stop shop from weddings, mitzvahs, corporate events, social, any kind of social event we can do and build it and create it from start to finish all in-house. So there's no like middleman, there's no second phone call. You can literally create and design your entire social event. So that's what we do full time.
And you got into that strictly through DJing?
Yeah, man. My buddy and I, who is with me now, we started DJing clubs when we were 18 years old, and just grew and got popular. We started doing a lot of underage parties, so that got us into the realm of things, and slowly but surely just grew a liking to it, grew a love for it. And then when we were 19, we learned about private events. And after that, it was kind of a snowball effect, and we just grew. And now we're one of the hottest event groups out there right now. We just started a new marquee company, like I just said. So we had a business when we were younger. I had no idea what the fuck we were doing, didn't know how to hold a bank account, none of that. But we were really good at what we did, and we knew people in the industry. So once we got big enough, we actually ended up selling it to another company and partnering up with them to, I think this takes some more weight off of our shoulders and kind of get the grasp of what a business is supposed to run like, and not just go out and party every weekend and spend the money. So when we did that, we recently just parted ways and opened up our own marquee group, and it's been a huge roller coaster ride for these last 5 months, all in a positive way. But yeah, so that's what we're doing now, man. I've been DJing for, like I said, since I was 18 years old, and I'm 30 now. So it's been an incredible experience, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
What kind of music do you prefer to DJ if you had your choice?
Old school hip hop and R&B.
Who's your favorite MC of all time?
Favorite MC of all time?
Yeah.
Favorite MC of all time. I'm a little all over the place, man, but if we're talking hip hop, I'm a big Biggie fan. I'm a big Pun fan, Big L fan. Tribe I like a lot. Big DMX fan. Yeah. I like Nas. Nas is I would say probably Nas or Biggie for sure.
Respect.
Yeah, but I'm a big Bruno Mars fan, bro. He's
obviously.
It was it was like Michael Jackson, Bruno Mars for me. Oh,
I love Michael Jackson. That's probably my greatest of all time.
Yeah. Michael Jackson.
I saw the Jacksons in 1984 at Giant Stadium at the Victory Tour. First concert ever.
Really?
Yeah, that's how old I am.
Incredible, though, man. I wish I could have seen him before he passed. What I love about music and my passion for it, I literally have a passion for this. I love what I do. I would do it for free. I'm impacting people's lives for the rest of their life, so whether it's a mitzvah, a corporate event, not so much for corporate events because they're kind of whatever, but with weddings and mitzvahs, 216s, whatever, these people remember us for the rest of their life. We are starting the next chapter for these people with their wedding or sweet 16 or mitzvah, and we're impacting them for 5, 10, 15 years down the line. Even when they get divorced and remarried, they'll still remember us. You know what I mean? They'll be like, yo, the DJ at my first wedding was sick, But it's a wild experience, especially that, we're in a room with 200 people that don't know us. So, and we're in a room that these 200 people don't know one another either. There's 100 people on her side and 100 people on his side. And we have to break the ice not only for us, but for every single person in that room, So it's wild, man. It's wild, and I love it.
What's your go-to icebreaker song, or what do you put on to get the party started, or do they request that?
Honestly, Stop Till I Get Enough is a big popular one.
Which one?
Michael Jackson,
Okay.
Don't Stop Till I Get Enough.
Right on.
That's a big popular one. I play a lot of old school stuff. I like old school disco and funk.
Yes.
So that stuff always goes over well.
Do you make original music, or is it all just parties and DJing that way?
No, I never got into producing or anything. It was just, Jimmy will tell you, I'm always in 100 million directions all the time. So to like sit down and actually produce music is too much for me. So I just play out, and I don't really even play out anymore. I strictly stick to private events. But when I do clubs and stuff, I play every genre. But it's all already made stuff, nothing that I created.
Do you have any favorite Bridezilla stories?
Bridezillas. I don't have any I've never had really a Bridezilla. I have to say I've been pretty fortunate with that, but I have some pretty wild bride and groom stories, Like I can see the bullshit in this when I sit down with clients and stuff, So I remember one wedding we did, the parents paid for the whole thing, and it was probably like a $50,000 or $60,000 wedding, and they booked me to do their entertainment. I booked them through a friend, and they were getting married to split the wedding money because they were both sleeping with someone else. And so after the wedding, they were going to just go their separate ways and split the money down the middle.
What?
And I found this out the day of the wedding. So that put a whole new, impact on that. So I had to go through the wedding like I didn't know anything was going on. And to put the cherry on the top, they invited the person that they were messing around with to the wedding.
Was this in Jersey?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
gotta love it. Did you ever have any no-shows?
No, never had a no-show. I had clients that get divorced 4 months later. That's really it, I've had, best men, make complete asses of themselves. That was probably the biggest thing,
Like
But
speeches?
no, I never had... Yeah, speeches that they're already drunk and, they're talking about old times and, how they used to bang girls together with the groom. And, I had to cut them off, or talking about the experiences that he had with the bridesmaids. And, I'm like, bro, you guys picked the fucking wrong time for this.
So you mentioned the wedding where you found out that they were splitting the money and they were only in it for the money. How, as a professional, do you not let that perfect your performance and, getting the party started and making sure everyone enjoys themselves? Or at that point, are you just like, fuck these people, I really don't even care?
Slayer all night.
I've never said that. Even if I had, a tough... my mitzvah clients sometimes are tough. But I've never done that. You know why? And I run a very tight ship with my company. I mean, everybody that works with us, we're very close with. We have a good relationship with all of my staff and everybody. And regardless of the circumstance, whether they're in it or they're not, or my staff shows up hungover or whatever, it's not the client's fault. And no matter whether they like each other, they don't, they're fighting, whatever it is, as long as we come 150% correct and, in it and dedicated to it, there can't be any fallback on us. You know what I'm saying? So whether they hate each other and get divorced the next day or whatever it might be, it can't fall back on us and say, oh, you guys weren't in it or whatever because you knew what was going on. So at that rate, you just got to put a fake smile on and make sure you create the experience that they were expecting, regardless.
You're a better man than I am.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You know, sometimes you just got to swallow the bullet and just go with it. So
you mentioned you had knee surgery. You're coming back. You've been about 10 months. How's the recovery been going? Have you been training? Do you have a fight scheduled yet, or anything on the horizon that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm trying to fight November. Knee surgery was a piece of cake, I have to say. I mean, I had a surgeon around me, and he was incredible. Dr. Scalfani, incredible dude. I was in zero pain. I was off of crutches in a week. And honestly, everything is A-okay. I mean, I've been training hard. I just got back in the gym full time literally this week because work's been so crazy for me this summer. But, yeah, it's, my knee is ready to go. I would say it's about 95%, and I'll be fighting again in November.
Right. Was that a wear and tear injury, or was there one specific trauma that caused it?
No, I was kind of forcing a throw, and I was throwing a hip toss, but I was hooking the leg, and instead of just letting it go, I forced it over my knee, and my knee just completely exploded. So it is what it is. It's a life experience, and honestly, it hindered me mentally when I first found out because I was gonna still try to fight, but when I had the surgery and I went through it and I'm sitting on my couch, it honestly slowed my life down to a point that, all right, it's time to figure out what I want to do, how I want to do it. And that's when I cut a bunch of the fat out of my life and started my podcast, created my website, came up with a whole bunch of new things. And if it wasn't for my ACL surgery, I probably wouldn't have the organization in my life that I have now.
You touched on just getting back in the gym this week because work's been crazy during the summer. How do you balance that, getting proper training in, get the workouts in you need, and running a business?
I wish I could say I do balance, It's tough, man. A lot of people tell me I got to slow down. I'm just a perfectionist, and I'm my own enemy because I don't like to say no to anyone. So it's tough to balance. I don't know if I'm the best at balancing it. I don't even know if I do balance it, but I find a way every time. And I'm a big Gary Vee fan and Eric Thomas, and I'm a big believer of you don't sleep when you're done. You don't sleep when you're tired. You sleep when you're done. So there's enough time in a day to get everything that you need to get done. And I hate saying tomorrow.
One of the things we like to ask people that come on, we're big on, challenges and leveling up. Do you have any daily practices that you do on the regular to level up or to kind of keep you centered and focused on it, keep your eyes on the prize?
Well, I have a vision board. I have a goal chart. But every morning I wake up, I have coffee, and I listen to a speech or a motivational video. And then from there, then I turn my phone on, then I look at my phone. So I wake up, I let my dogs out, I make some coffee. I live in the woods, so I go out and listen, if it's a nice day, it's not too cold or it's not raining, I go out and just sit. And then I listen to a speech just to start my day. And then from there, I'll turn on my phone, be like every basic individual out there and scroll through Instagram, check emails, and then start my day.
How do you take your coffee?
A little bit of cream.
Full fat, heavy cream?
No, a little...
You do a half?
A little half and half, a little French vanilla half and half.
All right. Are you brewing in like a French press or anything, or are you going Mr. Coffee style?
No, I got a Keurig.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, I gotta clear. I have very much a bachelor pad, so as easy as it can be, I've tried to make it.
With the videos, is it like a podcast, or are you just pulling different things? Like one day it's Jocko.
As far as the podcast goes, it's just audio. It's just audio right now, and then I just moved into a new office, so we're actually going to set up a section in the office just for the podcast to do video, because I feel like podcasts are successful with their backgrounds and, you know, the location that they have them in, because it kind of sets like that atmosphere every time. You know, Joe Rogan, everybody knows like the purple drape behind Brandon Shaw. He has his couches, so everybody kind of it's always the same.
I was talking about like in your morning ritual with the motivational videos. Are you pulling those off of YouTube, or is it a podcast that you're listening to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, YouTube. Ed Mellett's a great guy. YouTube, he's on YouTube. I listen to him. I listen to Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas, Gary Vee. I listen to a bunch of these guys. Whoever. Sometimes I just listen to like a compilation of a bunch of them. So.
Frankie, one thing I wanted to ask you, it's a little off topic. I didn't expect us to touch on the epic topics that we've touched on today, which I greatly appreciate. Your first fight in the UFC was on the Conor McGregor-Dennis Silver card. Can you talk about fighting on a Conor McGregor card? Was that any different than, you know, your normal fights? I know you said Ring of Combat is your favorite place to fight, but was that any different? Was that any crazier than any of the other UFC cards you've been on?
Yeah, it was wild, man. And, you know, a lot of people can say a lot of things about Conor McGregor, but you know, he's definitely changed since then. But behind the scenes, he was cool, calm, and collected. But that was definitely a sick experience because people were there super early. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of people there when I went out and fought. Plus, it was like the Patriots were playing that day. It was a Super Bowl, so it was like it was a wild experience for sure.
All right, and one other thing I wanted you to touch on. I'm not really knowledge on what your involvement is, but what is Dead Serious MMA, and what's your involvement in that?
So Dead Serious MMA is my parents' business. They have probably the number one amateur show in New Jersey, New York, and PA, and they are partnered up with Ring of Combat as well. They do MMA fights, kickboxing fights, Muay Thai fights. They just started a professional grappling league, and they're just in it. They're completely invested. They're in it. I handle the whole production aspect of it because I don't want to talk to fighters or deal with any of that stuff. And I have the fun job of hiring all the ring girls. So
nice.
That's what I do.
Now, were you all because of you getting into MMA, right? Your parents had no involvement with MMA before you started training?
Yeah. I started the whole thing. My dad was a big supporter and wanted to get him, invested somehow. So they literally started with 3 T-shirts, a gray, a white, and a black. And it, snowballed into gloves, shorts, all that stuff. And they have a whole Dead Serious fight gear line. And then it turned into the MMA shows. It first started with grappling shows, and then it went to MMA shows. So it's pretty wild how it all came full circle from not letting me wrestle to MMA is our life.
Right. That is pretty crazy. Did you get to fight on any of those shows as you were coming up, or was that after you had already went pro that your parents started Dead Serious?
Yeah, no, I never was able to fight on Dead Serious. Yeah, it was after I went pro.
Have you? Has there been guys that started on Dead Serious shows that have made it to the UFC yet?
Oh yeah, Ricky Bandejas started on my dad's show. He's in Bellator. Shane Burgos is in the UFC. Randy Brown's in the UFC. Mickey Gall is in the UFC. There's a bunch of those guys that started with my dad and are in the UFC now.
That must be pretty epic to, what you were saying before, your parents not supporting wrestling and then kind of going all in on MMA and now providing guys opportunities to start their fighting career, and now they're making it to the UFC. That must be pretty epic for you and your family.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, man, it's all my parents. I have nothing to do with it. They come up with the concept, and I just back them on it. My dad is an incredible matchmaker, and my mom's a great bookkeeper. So they're a great team, and they know how to make it work. So I know it's nice now that they're partnering up with Ring of Combat, so they can build the amateurs up the right way, and then when they want to turn pro, they build them up the right way when they turn pro as well. So it's cool to see a lot of these kids grow up into men.
You can only take credit for the ring car girls, correct?
That's it. We get the best ring car girls in the business.
One other thing I wanted to touch on, we had touched on prior, but you obviously have a
lot of touch in there.
And whatever. You're on a star-studded team with a lot of good MMA fighters and legends. Who has had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, probably Frankie Edgar, man. I mean, he's and not to say Frankie Edgar has looked out for me in so many different ways. He's taught me so much about the game, about life. He believes in me more than I believe in me, which is kind of crazy. And I look up to him like a big brother, like a mentor. Him. I'm very, very close with Frankie, with Eddie Alvarez, with Corey Anderson, like Chris Ligori. Those are like my core four. Marlon Moraes too. It's like, but Frankie is our captain, man. We all strive to work as hard as him, be like him, have the same mindset, and he's the reason why I found Ricardo. It wouldn't be any other way.
And how do you think, I know what I think, how do you feel about his decision to go to 135?
That's smart, man. It's smart. He still has a lot of fight in him, and how do you tell a guy that fighting is all he knows? He's a fighter at heart. That's what he does.
Yeah,
so,
I know he's been getting, depending on who you follow, who you listen to, but I know some people were getting down on him for, this is the worst decision of his career. But knowing him as long as I've known him and knowing that he's never really cut weight, like, people cut weight, and what his size is, I think he's going to step right into 135, and he's going to, do just as good, if not better, than what he was doing at 145.
Yeah, you know what it is, man? People are like, what do you think about the Max Holloway fight? I don't think anything of it. I thought he fought a great fight. The problem was when he was having success at 55, at that time, these guys that fought were only good at one thing, and were good wrestlers with the jab. They were, good Muay Thai guys. They were wrestlers. They were good at one aspect. And now, yeah, they were bigger than him, but Frankie was putting it all together then. That's how ahead of our team was then. We were MMA fighters. So now that the guys are getting better at everything, now size is a big factor. Size is a huge factor now. So when you have a guy that's, walking around at 155 pounds, fighting a guy that walks around at 185 pounds, and I don't give a crap how good of a wrestler or how good a boxing or whatever it is, size is eventually going to be a factor that's going to, not withstand you winning the fight, regardless if you have a great night or not. So, I mean, this is a sport too, man. Anything could have happened. He could have caught Max. We wouldn't be having this conversation, but he's going to finally start fighting guys that are his size, which is good for him, but also good for his family and us, because we don't want to see this kid take the damage that he takes sometimes. It's rough. It's rough on the eyes.
Yeah, definitely can get a little cringeworthy at times, but like I said,
yeah.
I think size-wise, height-wise, and knowing that he's never really had to cut serious weight, I think he's going to do fine at 135, and I think you're going to see him get right back into that title mix pretty quickly.
Yeah. But
Frankie, you've been
yeah, man.
super gracious with your time, and I've enjoyed the hell out of this conversation. Before we get you out of here, is there anything that you got going on that we haven't brought up that you want to speak on?
Nah, man. Just, follow my journey. I'm at Team Frankie Perez on all the outlets, on social media and Instagram and all that stuff. Dead Serious MMA, Dead Serious Fight Gear, one-of-a-kind events. We're just a kid out here living his life to the fullest. You know what I mean?
Keep it up, my man. You're one of the best follows on Instagram. I love seeing where you're going every weekend and what you got going on. It's pretty epic.
You the man, dog.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Have a good one, Frankie. Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right, bro. Take care, guys.